Chapter 20. Roger had been spending a long, quiet evening at home. He had asked John to dine with him, and they had chatted for a time. Then John had started up to his room, and listening to the slow, shuffling step of the cripple going upstairs, Roger had thought of the quick, eager feet and the sudden scampers that would be heard as this silent old house renewed its life. Later he had gone to bed. He awakened with a start. The telephone bell was ringing. "Nice time to be calling folks out of bed," he grumbled, and he went into the hall. The next moment he heard Deborah's voice. It was clear and sharp with a note of alarm. "Father, it's I. You must come to Edith's apartment at once. Bruce is hurt badly. Come at once." When Roger reached the apartment, it was Deborah who opened the door. Her face had changed. It was drawn and gray. She took him into the living room. "Tell me," he said harshly. "It was just outside the theater. Bruce and Edith were out in the street and got caught by some idiot of a chauffeur. Bruce threw Edith out of the way, but just as he did it, he himself got struck in the back and went under a wheel. Alan brought him here at once while I telephoned for a friend of his, a surgeon. They're with Bruce now." "Where's Edith?" "She's trying to quiet the children. They all woke up." Deborah frowned. "When he was brought in," she added. "Well," breathed Roger, "I declare." Dazed and stunned, he sank into a chair. Soon the door opened and Alan came in. "He's gone," he said, and Deborah jumped. No, I meant the doctor." "What does he say?" "Bruce can't live," said Alan gently. In the tense silence there came a chill. "And he knows it," Alan added. "He made me tell him. He said he must know for business reasons. He wants to see you both at once before Edith gets that child asleep." As they entered the room, they saw Bruce on his bed. He was breathing quickly through his narrow, tight-set jaws and staring up at the ceiling with a straining, fixed intensity. As they entered, he turned his head. His eyes met theirs and lighted up in a hard and terrible manner. "I'm not leaving them $1, he cried. "We'll see to them, boy," said Roger hoarsely, but Bruce had already turned to Baird. "I make you my executor, Alan. Don't need it in writing. There isn't time." He drew a sudden quivering breath. "I have no will," he muttered on. "Never made one. Never thought of this. Business life just starting, booming, and I put in every cent." There broke from him a low, bitter groan. "Made my money settling other men's muddles. Never thought of making this mess of my own. But even in mine, I could save something still. If I could be there. If I could be there." The sweat broke out on his temples, and Deborah laid her hand on his head. "Shh," she breathed. He shut his eyes. "Hard to think of anything anymore. I can't keep clear." He shuddered with pain. "Fix me for them," he muttered to Baird. "George and his mother. Fix me up. Give me a couple of minutes clear. And Deborah, when you bring 'em in, don't let 'em know, you understand? No infernal last goodbyes." Deborah sharply set her teeth. "No, dear, no," she whispered. She followed her father out of the room, leaving Alan bending over the bed with a hypodermic in his hand. And when, a few moments later, George came in with his mother, they found Bruce soothed and quieted. He even smiled as he reached up his hand. "They say I've got to sleep, old girl. Just sleep and sleep. It'll do me good. So you mustn't stay in the room tonight. Stay with the kiddies and get 'em to sleep." He was still smiling up at her. "They say it'll be a long time, little wife, and I'm so sorry. I was to blame. If I'd done as you wanted and gone in their taxi, remember, you said it might rain." He turned to George. "Look here, my boy, I'm counting on you. I'll be sick, you know, no good at all. You must stand by your mother." George gulped awkwardly. "Sure I will, Dad." His father sharply pressed his hand. "That's right, old fellow. I know what you are. Now, good night, son. Good night, Edith, dear." He looked at her steadily just for a moment, then closed his eyes. "Oh, but I'm sleepy," he murmured. "Good night." And they left him. Alone with Alan, Bruce looked up with a savage glare. "Look here," he snarled between his teeth. "If you think I'm going to lie here and die, you're mistaken. I won't. I won't let go. I'll show you chaps you can be wrong. Been wrong before, haven't you? Thousands of times. Why be so damnably sure about me?" He fell back suddenly, limp and weak. "So damnably sure," he panted. "We're never sure, my dear old boy," said Alan very tenderly. Again he was bending close over the bed. "We're not sure yet, by any means. You're so strong, old chap, so amazingly strong. You've given me hope. What are you sticking into my arm?" But Alan kept talking steadily on. "You've given me hope you'll pull through still, but not like this. You've got to rest. Let go and try to go to sleep." "I'm afraid to," came the whisper. But soon, as again the drug took hold, he mumbled in a drowsy tone, "Afraid to go to sleep in the dark. Say, Alan, get Deborah in here, will you? Just for a minute. One thing more." When she came, he did not open his eyes. "That you, Deborah? Where's your hand? Oh, there it is. Just one more point. You. Again his mind wandered, but with an effort he brought it back. "You and Edith," he said in a whisper, so different. Not like each other at all, but you'll stick together. Always, always. Don't let go. I mean, of my hand. No, dear, no." And with her hand holding his, she sat for a long time perfectly still. Then the baby was heard crying, and Deborah went to the nursery. "Now, Edith, I'll see to the children," she said. "Alan says you can go to Bruce if you like." Edith looked up at Deborah quickly, and as quickly turned away. She went in to her husband, and there, hour by hour through the night, while he lay inert with his hand in hers, little by little she understood, but she asked no question of anyone. At last Bruce stirred a little and began breathing deep and fast. And so death came into the family. Chapter 21. Roger went through the next 2 days in a kind of a stupor. He remembered holding Edith and feeling her shudder as though from a chill. He remembered being stopped in the hall by George, who had dressed himself with care in his first suit with long trousers. "I just wanted you to remember," the boy whispered solemnly, "that I'm nearly 16, and I'll be here. He said to stand by her, and I will." The rest of that ghastly time was a blank, punctuated by small, quiet orders which Roger obeyed. Thank God Deborah was there, and she was attending to everything. But when at last it was over, and Roger had spent the next day in his office, he found it impossible to work, and so had gone home early. Deborah came to him in his room. "Now we must have a talk," she said. "Alan has gone through Bruce's affairs, and there are still debts to be settled, it seems." "How much do they come to, Deborah?" "About $5,000, she said. And for a moment neither spoke. "I wish I could help you out," she went on, "but I have nothing saved, and neither has Alan. We've both kept using our money downtown, except just enough for the trip abroad, and we'll need almost all of that to settle for the funeral." "I can manage," Roger said, and again there was a silence. "Edith will have to come here to live," Deborah said presently. Her father's heavy face grew stern. "I'd thought of that," he answered, "but it will be hard on her, Deborah. I know it will, but I don't see anything else to be done." The deep, quiet voice of his daughter grew sweet with pity as she spoke. "At least we can try to make it a little easier for her. You can take her up to the mountains, and I can close her apartment. But of course she won't agree to it unless she knows how matters stand." Deborah waited a little. "Don't you think you're the best one to tell her?" "Yes," said Roger after a pause. "Then suppose we go to her. I'm sleeping up there for the next few nights." They found Edith in her living room. She had sent the nurse out, put the children to bed, and left alone with nothing to do, she had sat facing her first night. Her light, soft hair was disheveled, her pretty features pale and set. But the moment Roger entered, he saw that she had herself in hand. "Well, father," she said steadily, "you'd better tell me about our affairs. My affairs," she corrected herself. When he had explained, she was silent a moment, and then in a voice, harsh, bitter, abrupt, "That will be hard on the children," she said. On an impulse, he started to take her hand, but she drew a little away from him. "The children, my dear," he said huskily, "will be taken care of, always." "Yes." And again she was silent. "I've been thinking I'd like to go up to the mountains, right away," she continued. "Just our idea," he told her. "Deborah will arrange it at once." "That's good of Deborah," she replied, and after another pause, "But take her home with you, will you? I'd rather not have her here tonight." "I think she'd better stay, my dear." "All right," in a tone of weariness. "Madge Deering called me up tonight. She's coming in town tomorrow, and she means to stay till I go." "I'm glad," he said approvingly. Madge had been a widow for years. Living out in Morristown with 4 daughters to bring up, she had determinedly fought her way, and had not only regained her hold, but had even grown in strength and breadth since the death of her husband long ago. "I'm glad," he said. "You and Madge—" He paused. "Yes, we'll have a good deal in common," Edith finished out his thought. "You look tired, Dad. Hadn't you better go home now?" she suggested after a moment. "Yes," said Roger, rising. "Good night, my child. Remember." In the outer hallway he found Deborah with Laura. Laura had been here several times. She was getting Edith's mourning. "There's a love of a hat at Thurns," she was saying softly. "If only we can get her to wear it. It's just her type." And Laura drew an anxious breath. "Anything," she added, "to escape that hideous heavy crepe." Roger slightly raised his brows. He noticed a faint, delicious perfume that irritated him suddenly. But glancing again at his daughter, trim, fresh, and so immaculate, the joy of life barely concealed in her eyes, he stopped and talked and smiled at her, as Deborah was doing, enjoying her beauty and her youth, her love and all her happiness. And though they spoke of her sister, she knew they were thinking of herself, and that it was quite right they should, for it gave them a little relief from their gloom. She was honestly sorry for Edith, but she was sorrier still for Bruce, who she knew had always liked her more than he would have cared to say. She was sorrier for Bruce because, while Edith had lost only her husband, Bruce had lost his very life, and life meant so much to Laura these days. The glowing, coursing, vibrant life of her warm, beautiful body. She was thinking of that as she stood in the hall. In the evening, at home in his study, Roger heard a slight knock at the door. He looked up and saw John. "May I come in, Mr. Gale, for a minute?" "Yes, my boy." John hobbled in. "Only a minute." His voice was embarrassed. "Just 2 or 3 things I thought of," he said. "The first was about your son-in-law. You see, I was his stenographer, and while I was in his office this morning helping Dr. Baird, I found a good deal I can do there still, about things no one remembers but me. So I'll stay there a while, if it's all right. Only," he paused, "without any pay. See what I mean?" "Yes, I see," said Roger. "And you'd better stay, in that way, if you like." "Thanks," said John. Then, about his wife and family. You're to take them up to the mountains, I hear, and, well, before this happened you asked me up this summer, but I guess I'd better not." "I don't think you'd be in the way, my boy." "I'd rather stay here if you don't mind. When I'm through in your son-in-law's office, I thought I might go back to yours. I could send you your mail every 2 or 3 days." "I'd like that, John. It would be a great help." "All right, Mr. Gale." John stopped at the door. "And Miss Deborah," he ventured, "is she to get married just the same?" "Oh, yes, I think so. Later on." "Good night, sir." And John went out of the room. When would Deborah be married? It came over Roger when he was alone how his family had shifted its center. Deborah would have come here to live, to love and be happy, a mother perhaps, but now she must find a home of her own. In her place would come Edith with her children. All would center on her in her grief. And for no cause, just a trick of chance, a street accident. And Roger grew bitter and rebelled. Bruce was not the one of the family to die. Bruce, so shrewd and vigorous, so vital, the practical man of affairs. Bruce had been going the pace that kills, yes, Roger had often thought of it. But that had nothing to do with this. If Bruce had died at 50, say, as a result of the life he had chosen, the fierce, exhausting city which he had loved as a man will love drink, then at least there would have been some sense of fairness in it all. If the town had let him alone till his time. But to be knocked down by an automobile, the devilish irony of it, no reason, nothing, just hideous luck. Well, life was like that. And as for Edith and her children, he would be glad to have them here. Only it would be different. The house would have to change again. He was sorry, too, for Deborah. No wedding trip as she had planned, no home awaiting her return. So his mind went over his family. But suddenly such thoughts fell away as trivial and of small account, for these people would still be alive, and Bruce was dead and Roger was old. So he thought about Bruce and about himself, and all his children grew remote. You will live on in our children's lives. Was there no other immortality? The clock ticked on the mantel, and beside it the thinker brooded down, and Roger looked up unafraid, but grim and gravely wondering.